it's my brother. Oh, look, there's my dad. Hi.
Hi.
Thought we'd come out and have a beer.
We're going to do a half hour together.
Yeah, we are. It's going to be great.
All right.
So this is the part of our program where we want to hear from you. And in fact, Donna, you could come back and tell us your thoughts about the internet and imagination. But what we really want to hear from you is what have you learned this week? What has your experience been like this week? And what are the examples or connections or ideas that you are taking away with you? And I will also... Yeah, I guess we'll come back to the future in review towards the end of the session. Or should we talk about that now? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have things to share, please line up and let us hear them.
Oh, wait, Berit, I got an even better idea.
Okay.
Before Ramesh speaks, if you do give us your opinion, then you need to buy an early bird ticket before you leave the building. You know, I think that's kind of a trade-off. $500 for your opinion. It's worth it. Ramesh, go ahead.
So it's been a great meeting, really, and I wanted to share and pose as a question a thought that's been running through my mind, picking up on ideas from different sessions. So one of the sessions yesterday wasn't explicitly framed this way, but it seemed like how to scale up and reduce the cost of war making around the planet. Right? Lower the cost radically, so we'll have lots of low-cost platforms. Many more nations will be able to defend themselves against all kinds of attacks. So I was just playing out in my mind, what does that do? Does this lead us to an era in which we'll have many more wars because they're more affordable now? Or will it create this mutually assured destruction type of scenario where you have fewer wars? And then we heard this morning from Mark and Sir Richard, the conversation that usually when you go to war, you hurt yourself more than anybody else. So I was wondering if there is a way in which we could think of this war-making apparatus as dual-use platforms, right? So in the event of war, they are there to defend you, but when there is no war, it still serves a useful purpose, like mapping the fish in the oceans when you're not looking for underwater threats, right? So is there a way in which this resource isn't entirely carved out for war making?
I love that. I think that came up a little bit. I'm trying to remember. Oh, at Scripps last night. They were talking on the panel about, you could use these resources, and if the Coast Guard or the Navy is already doing X activity, then maybe they could do a little science down there for us too. And I think it already happens, but I love the idea that we could do it more intentionally moving forward. And that would probably make a phenomenal panel next year, is like, how do you create dual use for good where you take military assets and, avoid sunk cost?
Ramesh, I think you may notice that part of what we try to do when we bring these groups of people together is we put the people who are building these tools in sessions with the people who are trying to protect the things that they're building, so that we hope that will happen in the future. And I really appreciate you calling that out, because from a strategic perspective, there's probably a lot more that we could all do in our work to try to build in, the imagination of what if this is isn't just built to destroy things? What if it's built to create things and to build things? Also, I would really like to ask for a giant round of applause for Ramesh for being our host for this week and sharing so many of the amazing things about Qualcomm Institute with us.
Your house is very nice. Thanks for having us over.
Might tell a short story.
Okay.
So now you all know what resonance theory is. And when I began working in it, I wrote one paper, and it was immediately rejected by the best top physics journal, Physical Review D. It quit very quickly, and then I stopped. I didn't submit it to anything else, and for 10 years I let it sit. The reason I let it sit is because I was a little concerned that there were things inside the theory that might be useful in war. So I thought about it, and I studied it, and I kind of looked at history and how it played out, Einstein sending that letter to Roosevelt and so forth. And my worry was that it would somehow go to, and no offense intended, to the Skunk Works crew over at Lockheed. because that's kind of a very obvious thing. And so finally I convinced myself, just because of the Einstein example, it's not up to the scientists to make this decision. It's up to the politicians. That's their job. So I felt fine. And I published it through our own SNS, and I pushed the button, and because of the way we run SNS, we can see who reads it often. And within 5 minutes, the entire Skunkworks team had it. I'm not making a joke here. I know their names. So, and then I got invited to all kinds of exciting meetings in the mountains of Colorado. So anyway, I think it is up to the politicians to make those decisions as much as to the scientists. The scientists are just doing what they can to move knowledge forward.
Yes.
There's so much irony in that. I'm Annette Mason. This is my first fire event. I live 10 minutes away. Did not know about fire or this being convened here last year. I found out from a TEDster, Sam Perry, at TED this year, 2026. The theme was all of us. And I hosted a brain date, which is a convening of a topic. And two of them, one was called Global Locals. And I was born in this country. My experiences growing up were in Asia, so I was kind of a reverse immigrant. I aspire for us to bring the outside in and the inside out. The funny things that have happened, the things I've learned. Virbella, I used to run innovation at a little company called Cubic Defense. I used to be involved in things at DARPA. And I met one of my neighbors here at this conference who lives 4 doors down. Global locals, if we're open to what's possible, you're manifesting it and you're creating an environment for it. And it's so exciting to see. And something to share from a child's perspective is because of TED, I learned about TEDx Kids, El Cajon. So for 13 years, the TED curriculum has come into a school district. And now it's in every single classroom from K to 12. And they put on this program, and it was last Saturday. It would bring tears to your eyes. They talked about everything from ICE to how to use AI to how to listen better. And so there are so many things that we don't know about that are possibilities. And I'm so excited to be here, and thank you.
Thank you for coming. That actually reminds me that last year we were talking to a couple different groups, but we do not jealously guard this content. I mean, all of you help us make a really great show that we think is filled with stuff that the world should know. So I was talking to public television, which was having trouble with their budget, right? And I was like, well, you could use all of the conference content. So if anyone knows someone who is an outlet like that, the video content, once it's edited, is public, and we would love to share it. And get more people kind of, on board. So let us know. Schools as well.
Hello, everybody. My name's John. This is my first fire as well. And I can't help but feel like this is a very historic moment. I'm a historian of science and institutional change and blah, blah, blah. And hearing all these, we like are standing at a nexus. This feels like the most interesting moment where we've got these documentaries about the Salt Lake's going to end, and we're talking about human trafficking, and we're talking about all these challenges. And at the same time, we have a generalizable pattern engine. That's something that I personally have been dreaming about for my whole life, basically. And I can't help but think about the Buckminster Fuller concept of that, and kind of like what Ramesh just said, we have this so much imagination for weaponry, but are we now at this turning point? And this kind of feels like this specific conference is this turning point where are we going to look back on this in 10 years and go, this is where we turned from weaponry to livingry, right? And we started systematically addressing those problems. And, sort of jokes that I've been making to folks of like, well, what's the Palantir for good, and these type of things, and these dual use technologies like this. I'm really grateful to have, found you all, because it's like giving me this hope of like, it's not a simple answer. You can't just simply do this, but being willing to try is the whole deal, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know. I just feel like this feels historic. Where there's so many things that paralyze the general public with fear and concern, or they check out and they dissociate. But there are folks here that are like willing. We're looking right in the face of the thresher maw, and we're going to do something about it. And we have the tools, right? But more importantly, I think we have the will. So I don't know. It feels a little historic. I would be interested of where we're all going to go, and I hope we get to look back in 10, 20 years and go, that was the turning point where we decided enough is enough. And I'd like to use all this for something better. So that's all. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, really well said. I think one thing that we've been working on, and you all have access to this now, we have digital salons now that are monthly, and that's one place that fire people reconvene, particularly for you folks that are new. Check your email, make sure you're getting stuff from Strat News, because that's how that happens, and they're quite lively, they're quite fun, and they're all a little bit like a tiny panel, right, on a Zoom call. And we'll probably be doing more stuff in the future that kind of, we now have not Signal chats, maybe it should be Signal chats, but WhatsApp chats that are perennial. So you can talk to each other in there, but stay connected with each other as well. And I really hope that what you described is true. I think that was a great kind of Imagineering moment. And we certainly, that is our intent for sure.
Yes.
Hello, my name's Andrew Rutger. It's my first fire. I've been to quite a few conferences and whatnot. I am more on the financial creative side of things, so to speak, and we're invested in David's company, the Cyano Capture. We're invested in Foundation Robotics and quantum, mathematics, etc. And we've just formed a group called the Department of Strategic Surprise. We've worked with DARPA, we've worked with other groups before, and I take the approach of we invest in these companies and then try and redirect some of their efforts, like Foundation Robotics has, contracts with the military to build these robots. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest in robotics, but it's just, it's as equally scary as it is promising, so to speak. But a lot of these things, to the comments about war and this and that, these things will be not fought by humans. They'll be fought by technology, basically, and it'll be advances in technology.
Right, and there's never any human side effects of that.
Well, there is a huge human effect, right? But the fighting itself and the defense, drone reiteration happens every 30 to 60 days. They reinvent. We're working with Ukrainian, drone manufacturers, and they have to reinvent it about every 30 to 60 days just because the technology changes and the defense mechanisms change, et cetera. And now we're looking at dirty bombs floating around on drones and all these sort of really hugely intellectual problems that have to be solved by humans, by us, right? At least for the moment. And so I want to invite everybody, I'm going to be on this. I'm now joined the group, and we're going to be listening into all this stuff, but I want to invite people to become involved in Strategic Surprise. We're going to have a center in Vienna, which is trying to bring technology, money, and innovation. We're doing a condenser, an incubator, a collaboration. I don't know if you've heard of the efforts of Maya, which was a design group which built the Kiva, which is a huge circular room with its a big whiteboard, where we bring scientists of interdisciplinary, scientists together to sort of collaborate and whatnot. But I just want to say this is a great conference, a lot of really great minds, and I'm really sorry I didn't get here earlier. John told me I had to come, so I'm here, and thank you. And I think it's been really, really enlightening. Good stuff.
Thank you. That sounds very cool.
And thank you, John.
You've got my attention on the Department of Strategic Surprise.
Anyone else?
We could sing. Going once.
Oh, here comes Jean.
There she is.
Yes, I come here to get my brain whacked.
Can you stand by the mic,
sure.
please?
I come here to get my brain whacked and broken apart, and hopefully it's not put together the same way in which it arrived. And this has happened, and I'm hearing new words here. It's great. Let's say I'm an organic avatar with emergent properties, but also separate, non-local properties. And I think that those descriptions of consciousness and our potential accurately describe what I've felt in the last 23 years with the Anderson family. Hive mind, tribal mind, not sure. But other things happen that I'm certainly not in control of in my brain and how they manifest in the world. And I just want to thank you for starting to get words for what we experience here, but I'm sure the words are not adequate to describe. We need complete synesthesia in a protected place. So here's to Jacob Collier and the joy of learning and what's ahead and being able to shape what is coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello,
This
Arnold.
has been, hello guys. This has been a delightful conference. I expressed it to Mark privately, and I will send that email telling you that it's probably the most insightful event I've ever attended. And I've attended a lot of them. I just like to make a proposal, something I would like to see reemerge as a public topic. When I grew up, conservation, wildlife was a big issue. I'm not just referring to Greenpeace, but also the World Wildlife Fund, preserving species. I find that kind of fell to the wayside. And for me, the biggest challenge for humanity, honestly, is the preservation of the great apes. And I don't hear that. I don't hear anyone stepping up saying we need to expand those reserves, because the challenge we have with them, especially for the mountain gorillas, for example, as the climate changes, their ecosystem walks away. But they cannot leave that mountain, right? So we need to have expanded ecosystems for them to move into or protect. I don't hear anything about orangutans. I think that would be the greatest failure of humanity to lose those species. And I don't hear public discussion, no ethical, moral discussion around preserving these and other species. I'd like to see that come back into the discussion.
Is this your first fire?
Yes, this is my first fire.
Okay, there you go. Gotcha. Well, anyway, you're right about this year, I think. But we did talk about the mega prairie project.
I think he's talking about in general, out in the world, not at fire.
Yeah, not just
He's
here.
saying this from this fire out to the rest of the world
okay.
is what
Because
I'm
we
hearing.
didn't cover it
Maybe
that
Am I
well.
getting that correctly?
Maybe both.
Yeah, I don't hear like anyone step up a building there saying, I'm going to make this my mission.
Yeah.
Protect orangutans
Yeah.
in Indonesia. That's going to be my legacy.
So we do have a thing called Plan A, just to get it out there again, which I like doing. And we spent some years, and so those who are returning already know what that means. But we went through the whole intellectual process of evaluating the IPCC reports, which I thought were way too conservative and absolutely full of shit. And then the idea of picking a temperature 2 degrees or 1 point, I hated that idea. That was stupid. No one's going to get motivated emotionally by a number. And then went on and on, kind of deeper and deeper. And the sea level rise was then the next big threat. It's going to rise. People are just going to put cement in front of their houses. Okay, what else? And finally I realized, there is a thing. And we got into this pretty deeply. And there's one thing happens, you're not afraid of it. When two things go nonlinear and then they go together nonlinear, that's a second nonlinear level, nobody knows what the heck happens next. You can't put a clock on it. You can't put an amount on it. You have no idea what's going to happen. And so we described this problem. We did some interviews with people at Cambridge and elsewhere, and then we thought more about it, and then it got really scary because wildfires looked really interesting. This was before the Palisades fire. And so it's like everyone's thinking, I'll be dead by the time the sea gets bigger than my house. No, you might be dead tomorrow. This is a whole different deal now. And so all you need is a few months of drought, and off you go. A little wind, and California is very well aware of this. So we thought Plan A, the final step with Larry Smarr's kind of assistance was I called him up. I had one beer. I called him up and I said, Larry, here's the idea. Wildfires are the problem. We can't wait any longer. Time is the enemy. It's not going to be. We can't sit around and go fusion, fission, fusion. That's just crazy. We've got to do something right now, and we've got to do it all around the world. What's this? Here's the idea, Larry. Everybody stops doing what they're doing. They take all their their discretionary cash or whatever, country by country, and they go solar. There's no technical issue. There's nothing to talk about. It's easy to do. There are increasingly fast ways to lay all this stuff out. The materials are available. It's sand. For 5 years, everyone does that. And then we're done. We have achieved the goal, and we have stopped the growth of global warming. 5 years. And I said, Larry, is that going to work? And he goes, yeah, that'll work. Except no one will do it. And so we brought this out to our tribe, and we have a jacket you can wear, and you'll feel more like a conservationist. It's very pretty, too. I've got one. And the idea is real. All this moaning and groaning and threatening and hating and fighting and party by party, and just stop everything you're messing around with. Stop bombing everyone every day, and take that money and buy solar. And if we do that for 5 years, we're all done here. Your kids will have kids. No one's going to be afraid of growing up in this world. All that stuff changes just by doing that. So that's Plan A.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think Arnold would support that idea.
Say again? Yeah, I have an idea on that topic. Yes.
But also so that's kind of like conservation by not destroying the planet, which is the ultimate form of non-conservation. But also to Arnold's point, we did try to get Jane Goodall. But who's the next Jane Goodall?
Yeah, we need to find...
And I agree with you, right? Who's the 30-year-old Jane Goodall now? And so if anybody knows who that is, let us know, and we will try to get them here.
Well, I
We
may
have
have
a Roger Payne grandchild here.
I may have an answer because I was just going to add on to that. Typically, also Fire Films has a lot of emphasis on conservation. So last year we did the movie The Grab, which is land conservation. Highly recommend you guys watch that. But one of my first years, it might have been my first year, there's an organization called Earth League International, and that's a guy that we had come here. His name's Andre Crosta. He technically has a network of spies that infiltrates criminal organizations for the effect of trying to conserve natural animal populations. So there's a movie that was Fire Film selected. It's called Sea of Shadows. It's essentially about the vaquitas. They're a type of whale that's just found off of Mexico. And what was happening was China consumers, which is very common in poaching industry, thought that the liver of a different fish that's in the area of the vaquitas has medicinal properties. So the drug cartels would then come and fish for these fishes and sell them to China. In that way, the nets were killing all of the vaquitas. So there was about 50 left or something. I'm getting my 8 left. And so Andre Acosta, he deployed his network of spies to infiltrate the drug cartel to then shut them down in their operation of killing the vaquitas. So he was actually able to get them to shut down. I'm not exactly sure where the vaquita population is at the moment, but that's just another example of how dedicated Fire is to the conservation. And I'll repeat that name, Earth League International. So Arnold, I don't know where you are. I would check it out because...
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's
the Fire community also helped fundraise for that effort. So I think we raised about $40,000 from this group to help support that effort. Will, wait, before you go.
Yep.
I heard you got a new job lately.
I did, yeah.
Do you want to tell everyone about it?
Yeah. I'm an energy guy. I do solar and batteries. I'm part of the Plan A global solar team. So I'm living in Australia, and I'm working for Tesla to deploy the Megapack battery systems on the Australian grid to pursue 100% renewables. Berit wrote a 100% renewable report. I did, a little bit of consulting on that, but yeah, that's what I'm doing.
And can you tell, I just don't know if everyone here knows your story, but can you tell them how you wound up in Australia and maybe what's going on now?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fire will get you professional help, but it'll also get you romantic help as well. But yeah, no, came first in 2018. 2019, I met a fire starter. I was a fire fellow. The fire starter, lucky enough, fortunately hired me. They moved me out to California, Santa Barbara, best place on earth. And then they moved me to Australia, and I met my lovely girlfriend, Kayla. And, I've since moved back to Australia, so there's a whole bunch of benefits that you get from coming here. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've tried Tinder, but have you ever been lit on fire?
That's good. I like that one. You just come up with that?
Really bad joke.
Wow. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Another
Thanks a
great
lot.
conference. I always say fire is the place that recharges my batteries and brings up my level of enthusiasm for work. And every year it's just another recharge. So I come back really motivated. Slowly that decreases, wanes throughout the year. And then the salons as well help. But, I get back and recharge my
You
batteries.
should definitely be in the battery business. I think that's
That's
a good
it.
fit.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
I have a question
Yeah.
or a comment. I'm Payson Stevens. I'm here local, and I'm a fellow at the Center for Human Imagination. I've been involved with climate change. I did my graduate work at Scripps in oceanography. Roger Revelle was my mentor, so I had some really great questioning to sort of deal with Roger's constant questions. One thing, and I've just recently come out with a book, Before AI Decides, 9 Ways to Stay Human, which I gave Evan a copy to. But one of the things in looking at AI now and climate change, the asymmetries that exist right now between those two coming together and tipping points that we can't even imagine are now converging. And I think it's a very critical thing. And this is my first conference with you folks. You've done a wonderful job. It's really great to see so many different kinds of disciplines coming together and just throwing stuff against the wall and kind of see what comes out when it hits your brain. And but the asymmetry issue is really critical in terms of AI, human evolution, divergence of consciousness and agency, and the tipping points with the Gulf Stream or whatever's going to happen that I don't know that we'll really be able to manage anymore. It's one of my large concerns as I'm looking at the event horizon. So thank you for all of this. I was one of the very early TED speakers in 1990, and to see where these kinds of conferences end up, and to have one like yours, which I honestly was not that aware of. I'm sort of cloistered in my life, but this was great. And think about the asymmetries and where they're going as a subject for future conferences. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminded me, if I had $1 for every time someone's asked me why my conference isn't a single topic, right, a single industry or something like that, I wouldn't worry about my budget anymore. But we have fought that every year that we've been in existence, because the only thing that we do know about why it works is exactly what you were describing, which is that when you bring people in from different... You have a thing about this. Do you remember your one-liner? The importance of discoveries directly?
It's a whole new theory. It's called discovery theory. And instead of doing what they teach you at Stanford, which is get more and more narrow, more and more narrow, more and more narrow, you open the thing as wide as possible, because the wider the funnel mouth, the bigger the discovery.
I.e., when you bring people from disparate fields together, that's when you get the real stuff.
Boundary busting.
So I see Sally's up there. Let's do Sally, and then let's do...
Okay, and we'll talk
Yeah,
about
all right.
yeah.
I just wanted to add another note to the question of preservation of species, of other species. Another thing that Fire Films brought here at one point was a documentary called Unlocking the Cage.
Sal, talk into the microphone.
I can't reach it. There we go. Unlocking the Cage. Featuring the work of Stephen Wise and his company, or his nonprofit, NHRP, Non-Human Rights Project. Okay. And then...
Just hold it. Just hold it.
does this work? How about this? I think I'll do without that, actually. So NHRP, their mission is to address to actually legally win the right of personhood for animals, starting with the big brain mammals. So they began with chimps, and they actually worked with Jane Goodall. So Stephen was probably the closest we've come to having Jane here, and he was here often. We screened that often, and they're actually making progress. But personhood will allow animals to be treated as if they are sentient beings. So currently they're objects. They're legally objects. so anything can be done to them. So it's a major effort, and they're making headway. They've got a lot of great legal minds on it, but NHRP is another place you could look to support.
Thank you. All right, so now this is where we talk about next year. I am very happy to announce that we will be back here again in San Diego next May 16th through 19th.
At the Qualcomm Institute.
At the Qualcomm Institute. We
Thank you, Ramesh.
are delighted to be here. We are excited to come back. I'm going to tell you some things that are probably going to happen next year because we've already been planning them. One thing that we know is going to happen, we have just heard from Yulia Navalny's team, who will be coming to speak next year. That's going to be a big deal. Yulia Navalny is the widow of Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny was the largest opposition figure in Russia who was killed in prison by Putin. And she was wanted to come this year, but we were at the same time as the Oslo Freedom Forum, which she chairs. So next year we're not at the same time as the Oslo Freedom Forum, and she is very available for those dates. This is a huge deal. She's an incredible speaker, and we're very excited to have her and to celebrate her work in supporting democracy around the world. Evan, you want to tell us some other things?
Yeah, we have about 5 fire starters that couldn't make it this year based on pretty much timing alone that are phenomenal companies. So I'm going to start talking to them in a minute. Bunch of different really interesting things. I guess I won't get into the details in case they can't make it next year. I don't want to tease something that's not real, but I'm really excited about that. That just means I think our cohort next year is going to be phenomenal. We've got other speakers that we're talking to that I'm really excited about. For those of you who remember Nicoletta Giordani, she couldn't make it this year, but she will be, I think, available then next year. So I'm really excited about that. I
talked to Adam Jacobs this week, who is excited to come back and is interested in having us, I don't know if this will work out, but is interested in having us all out to Exxon, his company, to do a tour of his company, which would be fantastic. Adam's dad and his grandfather have both been speakers at Fire. I don't know if you noticed, we like families here, but we're excited to continue to build out that relationship while we're in San Diego.
The founders of Qualcomm.
Yes, Erwin Jacobs, Paul Jacobs, you may have heard of them. Neil Bloom is excited to help us, support us again. He's got a bunch of fire starter companies that he wants to be here next year. And he's going to help us bring more family offices to Fire. So that's going to be a big deal for us.
Also, is Ed still in the room? I was thinking we should have them run one of their things, their workshops.
Oh, Ed Finn.
Yeah. Where'd you go, Ed?
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
I was thinking about that watching you on stage. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Hole in one.
Yeah.
Hi, honey. Two things. One is every year we think it's going to be impossible to beat the last year. We were just talking about this in the green room. And someone, once again, who's a longtime fire person, came up about half an hour ago and said, well, you did it again. So I hope we did it again. Did we do it again? Yeah. All right. Of course, that's really bad news because now we have to do it again. But we'll try. And I also think it's a pivot. I don't know if my mind was tracking exactly the same way as that fellow, but it felt like a pivot to me. It felt different this year than usual. By usual, I mean we're always excited. It's always like, quote, drinking from a fire hose. You hear that every year. But I think it was qualitatively and quantitatively different. I believe the first night, Sunday night, I looked around the reception, and it was different. They were all really excited. They're very intense conversations. It was like you put your family together from all around the world. They just met again. And I guess that was kind of true. I think people have become friends long enough that they actually feel like that. And it went on and on. I was there as an observer till they closed the bar. And I was not alone. You know, everybody kind of got kicked out, but they were still trying to keep going. And that was different. That's very different for those who remember standing out on the lawn at the Montage or at the Dell or something. That was much more civilized and kind of quiet. So this was much better. I think it's because of you all that's what's happened, and it's such a great change for the better, in my opinion. You know, it's never about the money. It's always about the people. So this people change that I'm seeing easily displaces any concern we had about, is it a 5-star or a 3-star or a 4-star hotel? So I'm really excited. And I think this also was true in the content. And one thing that is too obvious to bother with, except it's the main thing, and it really comes back to what was said a minute ago here about conservation. There is nothing in the world that I know of like this, not just because we're proud of it, or the economist said it, but because we do things. And so the things that come out of fire don't stop as soon as you go home. And they're of such a quality. It's really, I mean, no, I'm telling you what you already know. But it is a thing that worth saying and honoring and remembering and keeping it up. So you know that when we try to put a fire together for next year, it's not about how many butts in seats or who pressures us most or who's going to pay more as a sponsor. It's got nothing to do with that. But if we can think of major projects that we can continue because they're worth doing or start anew because they need to be done, that's what we're doing. And I think that creates a nuclear glue for all y'all, as my brother-in-law would say, that is irreplaceable.
Could I?
And, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, if I could just riff on that a tiny bit, because I've had exactly the same experience as this being something different qualitatively from prior fires. And the way it's sort of impacting me is that I think the proximity of all the existential threats in the world right now is causing people who have been tempted by apathy and resignation to receive the inspiration and the activation of fire. And I think the tipping point is not only who shows up, but how we show up. And I feel much more activation in this than there was always lots of activation, but I think we're at a tipping point in activation because of the proximity of those threats. And I think the timing is not a day too early.
Yeah, I feel like.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like looking back, at risk of like tearing myself up or something, but this is sort of this like weird holy order. And the new people that have joined us are like also a perfect fit for the weird holy order because they probably came to us directly through someone else who was already a perfect fit. And just what we're talking about right now is actually insane, right? So when you think about, oh, you got a conference, that's cool. There's like a million conferences. Sometimes there's conferences every day in cities. Did they save a species like what we were just talking about, right? And did they cure a disease? I mean, that is wild stuff. And so it's easy to kind of, you were joking with your own team about don't bury the lead on stage, right? Like it's easy to bury the lead for all of us, but I think it's great to like take a minute and go, yeah, we're doing really amazing things as a group and individually, and we should honor that.
We just found a way to see cancer in 3 seconds. Don't get excited.
I think the goodwill in the room is, as ever, at the end of the conference, unbelievable. And so the question I have for the three of you is, what can we do to help you make fire more successful? Or what can we all do to make fire more successful?
I have an answer.
Question.
Excellent segue.
Barrett has probably a fancy answer, but I have a really straight, blunt answer. If all y'all just buy a ticket this week, you'll save $500 and you'll make our lives much easier. So if you do that, that's the very first thing, and then everything else follows from that. But Berit will now explain to you all the beauty of all that. But just do it, and you'll save yourself money, and we'll love you.
And in a similar vein, bring your friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually what I was going to
That
say.
is true.
Yeah.
Tell the other thing that you all can do. We hear from people all the time, like, I can't believe I've never heard of you guys. I think my life has been changed by coming to this conference, but like, why have I never heard of you? And the most important thing that you can do after you are done purchasing your ticket for next year, so that we can,
Which allows us to continue
continue planning the conference, is to share content from the conference, right? Tell people about it. Put it on your LinkedIn, tell your friends about it. Invite them. Invite your friends to next year who you think would be a great fit. Because we really do, and then send us send me an email and connect me with people that you think should be speakers or fire starters. If you are, a company who is here as a fire starter this year, and these were some incredible companies, and you meet other companies that you think would benefit from being a part of this community out in the world, please send them to us. We will give you something, which we haven't figured out yet, but a really big hug and something
a
else.
cool hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing that just came up last night or yesterday, it looks like we're going to take the piece of Sir Richard and myself talking about the world and try to make that into a viral thing. So anybody who's got any connections who wants to post it somewhere can do that, and we'll just make it available to all y'all. And please, if you have a chance to do that, it'll happen probably in about a week. We'll have it up there, and we think the messages are important in that thing. So I think it's attractive. I think was it attractive enough to try this?
Yeah.
All right.
I will say
that'll be another thing.
All of the videos will be available online.
That's right.
You can also share the videos with your friends and communities and networks, and we encourage you to do that.
Very true.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Han. I'm the co-founder of the Dimension Genomics, a company based here. I'm one of the 5 starter company present on Monday, and I really want to thank you, the Anderson family, all of you, Mark, Evan, and Berit, giving me this opportunity to present our technology. But I would also love to thank all the fellows, the 5-star fellows that have been working, Luke, everybody here, and including Dan and Scott and all the professional crews, Ling and everybody. Yeah, I worked with them, in the last few days, and it was a great experience. I loved it. Thank you so much for this.
We didn't pay him to say that, but it's a perfect segue.
I would love to run applause.
Han, thank you so much for saying that, because what I was actually going to ask next was, could we have, you guys have seen what an incredible team we have. All of, many of these people are here volunteering their time and their energy. Some of them are looking for jobs. Please give them jobs. But most importantly, right now, I would love for them to stand up so that we can all give them a round of applause, because without these people, this event would not happen. So staff and fellows, please.
Scott, that means you.
And
So continue. Thank you, Ramesh, to recommend us. But also, thank you for bringing such a high quality of speakers. I've been to many conferences. There's such the breadth, the spectrum of topic we cover. It just mind blowing, brain stimulating. And Mark, I remember the first day you mentioned you're gonna show us this spectacular wall, right? That didn't disappoint. Mario, and that was just spectacular, right? So we are stargazers, we're star travelers and all that stuff. And I felt in the last 2 days I can go on another day, and because there's so many beautiful brains in this room, I want to have maximum neurological, exchange and activities. But sometimes also remind me there's a grim reality. Sometimes my brain can go forever, right? We have limitless. But one of the body cell quits on me, right? So a spleen cell, a colon cell start to have cancer. So that remind me I have to work harder to solve those problems, so can do more work, because our brain can go forever. This is really limitless, but there's other things we can solve. So this is something inspired me to go back to work in a lab and cure cancer. Not just longevity, make us live longer and healthier. So we actually can hitch that Mr. Anderson's space yard. I can finish that trip and come back again. So with that, I really want to thank you. Also, I have a takeaway. If you want to be a successful CEO, you have to whistle like a Berit. That really works, right? I realized that was a big takeaway. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think that is all for us. Thank you, everyone, for traveling from all over the world to be here and be a part of this. You have made this the most amazing fire yet. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.